What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Bryce, and today I'm reading chapter 40 of the Parker Inheritance. Let's begin. Chapter 40, Siobhan, Washington, 1958 to 1985. Mama, I'm home, Siobhan said as she stepped into the house and pulled off her heavy winter coat. She let the door bang shut behind her. Home. When had her aunt's worn beige carpets, wood paneled walls, and stucco ceilings come to represent home? Was it when she enrolled in the local school? When Perkins High School fired her father? When the Lambert police finally declined to press charges against the Allens? When her parents' lawyer told them they'd taken things as far as they could legally? Mama, she called again. The car was outside, and her father hardly ever left home anymore. Where were they? She paused upon entering the kitchen. Her parents sat at the table in the dark. Ever since his attack, her father didn't like sitting in brightly lit rooms. It made his constant headaches that much worse. Her mother rose from the table and walked over to Siobhan. Once she was near, Siobhan could see that her mother's face was wet. It's Reggie, she said quietly. He passed away. What? How? Was it? Siobhan had to stop to take a breath. In the darkness, her fingers found her wrist. Her bracelet. She pressed it against her skin. Was it Marion Allen? Her mother shook her head. Reggie died in Georgia, according to Coach Douglas. He found work on a shrimping boat. There was an accident out in the water. He went overboard. Siobhan's mother hugged her then, and that's when the tears truly began to fall. It had been 6 months since she last seen Reggie. She had been waiting, hoping that he would show up. She hadn't known where he was. All Coach Douglas would tell her was that he was safe. When is the funeral? She asked. There won't be one, her mother replied. They couldn't find his. The waves were too strong. She patted her daughter's back. Coach Douglas and Reggie's grandma are going to hold a small memorial at the church. She pulled away and looked at Siobhan, but we can't go back. Siobhan let go of her mother. Mama, you can't be serious. If the Allens knew you were back in town, there's no telling what they'd do to you. I can't let that happen. Her voice was shaking. We already lost Reggie. We can't lose you too. Siobhan crossed her arms. I could sneak you back on my own. Yes, you could, she said. But do you think Reggie would want that? If he were here, he'd say. She stopped as the phone rang. That's probably your aunt. I need to answer that. She touched Siobhan's cheek, then walked toward the hallway. Before she left the kitchen, she flipped on the lights, illuminating the room. Leanne, the light! Her father barked from the table, covering his eyes. Even with the reconstructed jaw, her father still slurred his words a little, but Siobhan had grown to understand his speech. Her mother kept going down the hallway, leaving Siobhan there to stare at her father. His eyes still closed. He pointed to the wall. Do you mind? He began. Siobhan remained in place. After a few seconds of silence, he slowly rose from the chair and began limping toward the wall. He owned a cane, but was too proud to use it. A thick salt and pepper beard now covered his face, perhaps to hide the scars from his attack. Big Dub made it halfway across the room before Siobhan finally marched past him. She flipped off the light. There, he sighed. Mind helping me back to my seat? Reluctantly, she walked to him. Even before taking his arm, she could smell the alcohol on his breath. She helped him return to his chair, then turned to leave. Wait, he said, grabbing her arm. Look. I'm sorry about what happened to the boy. Reggie, Siobhan said, yanking her arm away from him. Can't you at least call him by his name? Her father nodded. I know how much you care for him, for Reggie. And while I don't think he was the right boy for you, Daddy, she warned. Well, he wasn't. The boy was poor, with skin as bright as a light bulb. Look, I had to marry someone light-skinned, but you didn't need to. Did it ever occur to you that I love Reggie for who he was, not for his money or skin tone? Facts. She shook her head. And how can you even say something like that? Being married to Mama? Leave me and your mama out of this, he snapped. Now like I said, I didn't approve of the boy, but I didn't want anything like this to happen to him, but don't worry. As soon as I get better, I'll finish what he started. Now she frowned. I don't understand. Marion Allen, her father said. Reggie took one eye. Maybe I can take the other. I've been talking to Smitty about it, and we think, are you serious? She gave her father a sad, pathetic laugh. Ha 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 ha. You want to attack Marion Allen? You can barely walk. He destroyed my life, he yelled. Our life. We'd still be in Lambert if you don't make that stupid bet, she yelled back. I'd still be at Perkins, and you would still have a job, and no one would be hurt, and Reggie wouldn't be dead. She took in a few ragged breaths. This was another thing that had happened since she moved. She had found her voice. Before, she had been passive in her rebellion, sneaking off to see Reggie, refusing to play tennis. Now, whenever her father, or really anyone, challenged her, she roared back. Don't you want to get back at the Allens? Her father asked. Don't you want justice for Reggie? Justice is trying to work with the police, with lawyers, trying to change the system, she said. You want revenge, and this has nothing to do with Reggie. This is all about you. Siobhan left the room then. She was through talking to her father. It was easy for him to be told to be bold when he was propped up by liquor and bravado. But when the time came to actually put in the real work, going to therapy, trying to find a new job, taking responsibility for his actions, he would shrink back into the shell of a man he had become. Her mother had already begun to move on. She became involved in the local NAACP chapter. She was going to church again. She had friends outside of their home. Leanne Washington had decided not to let Big Dove's mistakes define her. Neither would Siobhan. Siobhan Washington wouldn't return to Lambert until 1985, not 1895. 28 years after she and her family were driven away, after years of neglect, the city was finally renovating Vickers Park. In addition to new playground equipment, they planned to add tennis courts, and thanks to community input, they had decided to dedicate the courts to her father. Siobhan wanted to be there when the plaque was unveiled. Her father had passed away in the fall of 1962, just before Siobhan graduated from college. Her mother had filled in some of the blanks about her father's childhood, including he'd been mistreated because of his skin tone and his family's poverty. Her father had been consumed by hate for others, and perhaps even himself, but he had still been a great man and had done much for the community. He deserved to be recognized. By now, Siobhan had moved from the classroom and was now serving as a second-year school librarian, being surrounded by stacks of books every day, along with the upcoming tennis court dedication, caused Siobhan to think more about Reggie than she had in years. His grandmother had passed away recently. Siobhan worried she was the only person left in the world who remembered him. One night, she pulled a small memory box from the top of her closet. Inside was the red scarf she'd worn at the tennis game. The faded note she found at her locker all those years ago, asking her to meet her at the park. There was also a creased picture of the tennis team that she cut out of a Perkins yearbook. Reggie stood on one side of the photo and she on the other, but when she folded it out the right way, she was standing right beside Reggie, her arm pressed against his. And there was the bracelet. She stopped wearing it when she got married and hadn't thought to put it back on her after a divorce. But now, as she was preparing to return to Lambert, it felt right to have it on her wrist again. It was a way to bring Reggie with her as well. On a whim, she decided to slip off to Lambert as a few weeks before the dedication. So much had changed about the city, yet there were things that were brought her right back to 1957. PJ's on Darling Avenue, still serving their daily special. Perkins High School, now integrated but still the pride of the African American community. Mount Carmel, her mother's home away from home. And Vickers Park, where she once fell in love with a boy and where he loved her back. It was spring and everything was beginning to turn green. The park was already under renovation. The city had dug up a lot of the old trees to make room for a pavilion and the tennis courts. Pavilion. Pavilion. Yeah. But their oak tree was still there. She placed her hand against the tree's rough bark and thought about all the secrets she whispered underneath its branches, all the kisses she shared underneath its canopy of leaves. And she had known what would have happened to Reggie. She would have taken more pictures of him with them. Maybe they should have carved their initials on the bark so they could be together forever. Maybe. She walked over to the location of the future tennis courts. The ground had been dug up. The soil was still fresh from where deep tree roots had been. She wished she had something of Reggie's from back then. She wanted to place a memento in the dirt underneath the green courts. He had been forgotten by so many people, but he deserved a memorialized too. Reggie was important, and even in death, she wanted him to know that. She slipped off her bracelet, old and scratched. It looked more like something a child would win from a carnival than a piece of jewelry suitable for a woman her age. She had already memorized every curve of her initials, the feel of the word love against her skin. Perhaps she didn't need the bracelet anymore. She had him in her head and in her heart, and that was most important. But as she held the bracelet over that deep, dark hole, she still didn't know if she could let him go. And that was chapter 40. So tomorrow I'll be reading chapter 41. And that's about it. Peace out.